Rolling.
Hi, I'm Vilan Trub, director of the upcoming The Dirty Kind, and I'm here with Todd Strauss-Shulson. Let's start over again.
I thought that was good.
Hi, I'm Vilan Trub, director of the upcoming The Dirty Kind. I'm here with Todd Strauss-Shulson, director of the Final Girls, A Very Harold Kumar 3D Christmas, and the upcoming Isn't It Romantic with Rebel Wilson, which is a huge accomplishment. And we're here at the Midway movie theater. I'm going to wait for the bus to pass so that you can know about the movie theater that we actually grew up going to. Because what we're going to do here is talk to you about some of the movie theaters we went that sort of made us who we are today, the film geeks we are today. And this happens to be the last one that's really around, so we'll show you sort of what the others turned into. I mean, I saw Jurassic Park over here, which was awesome, you know. I remember I saw it with my grandfather, and he freaked out, you know. He's from Kiev, he's not from here. He never really got to see these big movies, so I sort of imagine it's like when they first showed a movie of a train coming on screen and people running out of the theater. I got to see that firsthand.
So, true story, there used to be a payphone here, and there used to be more posters. That little vestibule wasn't there. Of me, like, pretending like I'm like rolling calls like a Hollywood exec with a Young Guns 2 poster in front of me. And I'm just like, hey, Emilio Estevez's hair maybe looks different than whatever I'm doing. I remember, the best memories though, really, thinking about it, it's like, it was like a league of their own, like those movies that were like, full of feeling, very hilarious, and it felt like everyone rolled in there because they were like, no one had cable, there was like nothing else going on,
yeah,
and it was summer movies, and...
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Sort of, the way people treat Netflix now is how movie theaters used to be, where you go to a movie theater, it's not like, oh, I've been waiting for this movie for months. No, it's like you go to a movie theater, it's like, well, what's playing? Well, that's sold out, let me just see this. It was just something to do, and it sort of became our personality. I mean, during summer, to get out of the heat, you just go to the movies. That's what it was.
How do we feel about this guy behind us? We can deal with it. We're in Queens, baby. Oh my God! You would come to this one also?
Yeah.
This used to be a West Coast Video, and I grew up just right there across the street. So this was really a lucky real estate break for me. Leave the house, come here after school. No homework was done. Just watching 3 movies in a row. And the idea was I would come in here, I was going to try to watch every movie that they had. That was my plan. Every movie here on tape, I was going to watch it by the time I was finished with high school. And so I was like in a rush to finish. And so I'd start like all the way over there, the new releases was there. Every new release, 3 a day, and sometimes if I was on a Jim Henson kick, I'd get like all the Hensons in a row and like watch all those and like, oh my goodness, and see how he developed and all this. But this fucking place, every like 4 or 5 months would like redo the interior, so they would just move all the categories around, which screwed up my whole plan, and I couldn't, where did action go? Everything is out of order. And I never ended up finishing. But this was an amazing place of like finding gems I'd never heard of. Sam Raimi was here, Ken Loach was here, Lair of the White Worm I found. I was like, what the hell is this? Like deep cut cones in the very, very beginning. Here, Mean Streets, I mean, so, like, when I was like 13, 14, like, remember seeing those movies? I was like, what is got Solaris, like, really just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, you start seeing, because, you know, you start off watching certain types of movies, and then when you start sort of expanding and watching movies, like you mentioned, discovering certain filmmakers and realizing that not every movie has to look the same or feel the same, you start sort of growing and realizing, like, developing your tastes. And, you know, I remember, like you said, movies you discover, you're a Clockwork Orange. I remember I saw I Vidaloni here. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I looked at it, I'm like, wait, so guys who were young were the same in the 40s and 50s as they are now? They just don't know what to do, they just want to drink and get laid? I'm like, so nothing's really changed, but he knows how to say it that's still relevant today. And I remember the guy who worked here, he had a tattoo of, like, lips on his neck. And I will never forget that, because it just really stuck out of my mind. And I remember thinking, I'm obviously never going to get a tattoo like that. But it's just like, you know, those images stay with you.
Also, something that was so fun is, like, you go to one of these theaters, the Trilon, which is way down Queens Boulevard. The Ramones used to rehearse under that theater. So if you grew up in Queens, that was like a, oh my goodness. And the Trilon was a great theater, single movie, big house. And I saw Boogie Nights there. And oh my God, I just could not fucking believe what I was seeing. But that movie's obviously, it's like a mixtape of a lot of great movies, and Paul Thomas Anderson at the time, young guy's second movie, all the interviews he would say what he was ripping on. So he'd reference I Am Cuba, for instance. I'm like, what the is that? And then I'd come running to West Coast Video and be like, do you have I Am Cuba? And they didn't know what that was. This was as great a story as this was. It was a chain also. And I was, what is going on? And then Video Station, they don't have it, or maybe they're closed down by then. But so this began a scavenger hunt. Go to the city, go to Kim's, go to Virgin, go to not Blockbuster, go to Tower, and just try to find it anywhere, and getting your hands on it and running home to see what it's all about. This would take like sometimes 2 weeks to get it together. It was like, those things, not that that's better or worse than, finding it on Netflix or Filmstruck right now. Just saying that, like, that kind of, like, energy put into these passions, this hunting, the things land in a way that they stay in your, like, soul for the rest of your life.
It's definitely an obsession. I mean, thank God, if it wasn't for movies, I mean, we have the tendencies to be like drug addicts. I mean, the way we treat movies, it was like drugs. Like, you have to have it, you have to watch it. I mean, spending hours on IMDb just sort of, clicking away who worked on what, going back and then seeing, okay, I got to see this movie from 1915, Yeah, and the fact is, with the internet, you can sort of find anything. Any silent movie, any movie ever you can find. And back then, it's like you hear about a movie, and it, like you said, it becomes a scavenger hunt.
I wonder if I was 14 and there was no West Coast store, and I was like, oh my God, well, YouTube used to be the greatest, because I would like get on YouTube and I could find like any Harold Lloyd movie I ever wanted to watch, and it was just so easy. And then I go to these K-holes, deep dark K-hole, whatever it is. It's not better or worse, it's just that these brick and mortar places don't exist anymore, but the brick and mortar is still here, and so it's,
Yeah, it's just different. This was the famous Forest Hills Theater. It was built in the 1920s. Now it's Ryan Reid and a Buffalo Wild Wings.
You can see it. What's kind of weird is that they all still look like movie theaters. There's the marquee over there. It's so beautiful. The blue glass from what, the kind of 20s or 30s, right? And all that molding, the concrete molding around the edges. It's so gorgeous. It really is. This was the prettiest of all. There were 4 movie theaters in this small little area. 4! That's wild! 4 of them, and this was the prettiest, and it was a single screen. I remember my most favorite memory of this one was running out of high school on Friday to see Spice World. Boy, did I think the Spice Girls were so good. And all of us were so pumped to see, what they had committed to film. And it didn't disappoint at all. Loved it. Also, Toys, Barry Levinson Toys. Yes. You know that movie?
Yes. Do you forget now with how movies come out with streaming and everything, where as a kid, very early on, you were conditioned to know a movie comes out in the theater, and then you have to wait a certain amount of months, and it's going to come out on VHS. And it was sort of like, as a kid, you already knew, okay, I just saw a movie in theater. Around this season, this is what I want as a present,
Oh, yeah.
I want this VHS of Moonwalker with Michael Jackson.
Fincher's recently had a pretty interesting, someone was like, your movie's dead, and he was like, they're not dead, they carry a different cultural currency now. They're like, they're almost like a campfire, and you gather around the campfire, and that becomes like a hub for you to come hang out around, but it's not so much about the fire itself, it's what you're doing while the fire is burning in the background. Wow. This is a hilarious update, because this theater looks exactly the same, except now I guess they help infants not die of typhus or something.
I'm all for movie theaters, but I can't complain too much because I have a toddler, and this place is fucking amazing.
But this is so fun. Now playing, you'll get Star Treatment. And the doctor looks like a superhero, and this is a funny way to have updated it.
I came to see The Good Shepherd here with some friends, and I'll never forget it, because it's one of those, only if you're a super duper film geek do you feel bad. We walked out of it, because my friends were like, this shit is boring, I don't want to watch this garbage, let's get the fuck out of here. So we walked out, and I walked out with them, but in my mind, I'm like, I actually like this movie, I want to sit here and finish watching it. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I will never forget walking out on this movie. Like you said, so much work goes into making a movie, and I just walked out of that thing. And even though no one knows, but in my mind, it's like, how could I do something like that, That's horrible. It's okay, I watched it on Amazon Prime.
This is a theater for me where I saw a couple of really indelible movies. I saw Fargo here. This also had a balcony.
Yeah. This was the last one that had a usable balcony that you could go to.
I saw Fargo here with a friend, and that was really blows. It's just so amazing. I was older. I was maybe 16 or something, so I already knew. I was like deep in Coen Brothers world. That was highly anticipated. I was like, well, that's just the greatest movie I've ever seen. How did you do that? Also younger, Roger Rabbit. That's for me, one of the most probably influential things I ever saw. Yeah. And I saw that here with my mom. I don't think we even knew what we were in store for. I came out of here so ramped up with energy, young, 9 years old or something. Stirred up with inspiration, innovate, funny, imaginative, and subversive, and oh my Daffy Duck and Donald Duck and killing each other with the pianos. I just couldn't believe that movie. I came out of here so worked up, and it took the whole walk home to get that energy out. Also, here, E.T., one of my first movies ever, like 4. And the story about seeing E.T., fuck that movie to show a little kid, because you don't have any tools or awareness of your emotional life. And that movie, it just is so full. It makes you laugh. I could cry. So sad at the end. That separation when they say goodbye. It is brutal. And I came out of the theater. It was in a hysterical fit, like a manic person, and then just crying, and then I was hitting my mom because I just didn't know what to do, teeming with feeling. That happened in this crazy incubator, and then Showgirls. First one to go?
Yeah, this one went a while ago.
I mean, I get it. It is like 15 feet away from the other one.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of movies with my parents, with my mom especially. I remember we saw like JFK and Nixon here, that Oliver Stone, like late 90s Resurrection. Those movies were just so wild. Here, and then Long Walks Home, talking about politics and filmmaking and so much to talk. Those are dense fucking movies. All of it. She lived through all that stuff. She could talk a little bit about her own experience, growing up, and I could talk about vertical editing.
It is sort of like a ritual experience where you go in, just clear your mind. I mean, it's sort of like what we're doing right now, we're just telling each other stories. The way we're telling you stories, that's what filmmakers are doing. They're just telling you stories through the screen. You don't know what you're going to hear from us, there's no expectations. So there's something about going to this place and knowing for 2 hours you're going to sit there and you're going to hear the story. With Netflix, with Amazon Prime, it's a little too easy to just shut something off after 10 minutes to sort of walk away. And sometimes you need more than 10 minutes of a movie to know if you're going to like it. There's movies where I watch where it's, at this point, because obviously I love movies and I'm conditioned to it, where you give it a chance, where I watch a movie for 10 minutes, a specific movie, Destination Wedding, with Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder. I was watching it, and at first I'm like, this feels too much staged, like a play. It's a very specific style. It's a very experimental film, and I didn't like it. But then because I stuck around, I finally got into the groove of the style, and I'm like, this is fucking hilarious. It's just two narcissistic pieces of shit, who end up falling in love. I thought it was a great type of, romantic comedy, a great way to show it, and with the movie theater, you're sort of forced to reinvest into the movie. You're sort of forced to reinvest into the story.
It does force you to pay attention.
Yes.
I would say probably the most important thing about all of these theaters for me was that, especially in high school and also early college, I just remember knowing it consciously that if I went too long without seeing a movie, too long is like 5 or 6 or 7 days, that I would start to really lose my grounding. And losing my grounding would be really scary and destabilizing and provoke a lot of anxiety and crippling anxiety and, insecurity and all this. But to somehow sit in a theater and see a movie would reorient me. It would reground me to a sense of my own emotional, foundation. I'd laugh or I'd cry or I'd feel less lonely. I'd feel other people out there. I'd feel, a bigger world outside of myself. And it would and I'd walk out of there being like, okay, I could breathe again, and I'm back to being a human being, and then it would start to build up on me again, and I'd need to see a movie to kind of recenter. And then I found years later this Cassavetes book that I just loved it so much. It was just such a more eloquent way of saying that feeling, which is, a lot of people go to the movies to escape their lives, but not me. I go to the movies to remind myself what living is. Remind myself what a sense of humanity is, what a sense of family is, what a sense of comedy is, what a sense of horror can be, what a sense of drama is, what connection is, what empathy and compassion can be, that life is terrible and great and everything in between. And I go and I remind myself it, and I walk out of there feeling like I've just had a great meal. Now that I'm older, I meditation practice and all this, and I truly, like, after doing like some meditation retreat or whatever, it's the same experience of reorienting yourself to the most human part of you. This is what a movie can do, especially probably in a theater when you're really connected to it and there's no distractions, including your own mind. Like you're overwhelmed by the screen and the sound and all of it. And I think, to me, these 4 theaters that we're talking about are the places from my life that early on made me feel probably the most human when I was growing the most. And that's how I feel about it.